If you have a student who is attending George Fox University, or they're about to be attending George Fox University, and you're considering buying a rental property for them, then this video is for you. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing all the things that you need to know if you're considering buying an investment property for your George Fox student. I'm going to be sharing based on my experience as a local real estate expert and as my experience as a George Fox student many years ago. I'll mention it a little bit later in the video, but I am a part of a small real estate team. We specialize in helping people relocate, and for people who are specifically looking at buying an investment property for their student and maybe other George Fox students in the area. All right, well, we've got a lot to cover in this video. I will have to say my background is in engineering, so I will be sharing some numbers, but I'll try to make sure I don't lose you in the process. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is that my freshman year at George Fox, I stayed in the dorms and I absolutely loved it. There really is something to the George Fox Be Known promise. That's George Fox's motto. It's what they're all about, is creating a community, creating an opportunity for you to have those relationships and really make some lifelong friendships. George Fox's policy is also to require freshmen and sophomores to stay on campus for the first 2 years for that very reason, is that you really just miss something if you're not on campus. And yes, it's expensive, but if you're looking for the cheapest option, then George Fox probably isn't the right fit anyway. So when it comes to living off campus, it's usually junior year that most students begin looking, and junior and senior year is when most students begin looking off campus. Now, if you are wanting to try and get an exemption or live off campus, I'm going to show you the page on George Fox that has first what their eligibility requirements are. So what does it take to live off campus? What are the exemptions? And there's a page that shows what the benefits of living on campus are. So you can go ahead and check those out. I've got those links in the description as well. All right, and now we're gonna go ahead and talk about the difference between living off campus versus on campus. Now, depending on what kind of apartment or housing you get and how many roommates there are, your student should expect to pay off campus somewhere around $400 to $1,000 per month, which comes out to somewhere in the range of $5,000 to $12,000 per year, because most leases are for 1 year. Now, behind me is actually this is the triplex that I lived in when I lived at George Fox, both my junior and senior year. I paid $200 a month for rent. I don't think they've made a single change since I've been here more than a decade ago. Hopefully they haven't raised the rent much. So it's a great location because it's like right off of George Fox, but it's just funny to me that it was falling apart then and it's falling apart now. Anyway, it can be a good option to find cheap housing if you're a college student, you don't really care for much. So it's just something to consider. Now, if you do decide to live in on-campus housing for your junior and senior years, according to the website at the date of this recording, the housing costs are anywhere from about $4,000 to $5,500 depending on what kind of room you're in. So for the whole year, that's going to be somewhere in the range of $8,000 to $11,000. And if you're looking at for both years, that's going to be somewhere in the range of $16,000 to $22,000. All right, now let's consider an investment property. So say you're looking at a $500,000 property that has 4 bedrooms in it. Now, depending on how tightly you're wanting to squeeze in, maybe you could fit 3 other roommates besides your student, maybe more. So I wrote down some numbers because I couldn't remember everything off the top of my head. So basically, if you're looking at a $500,000 property and you're putting 25% down, then that's going to be $375,000 on your loan. Depending on what your interest rate is, because they're changing all the time, you might be looking at a payment of about $2,800 per month. So if you've got 5 other students who are paying $600 per month, you might come out to about even on a monthly basis. You might even be making a couple $100s per year. Now, it doesn't make sense for me to go into all the exact numbers because you can look at that on your own if you're considering investing. But it's interesting to consider the fact if you've got other students who are paying for part of the rent, paying for utilities, then your monthly cost might be break even or slightly positive. That said, there still are other costs when it comes to buying a home. So when you're buying a home, you have to consider closing costs. If you're buying with cash, your closing costs are going to be pretty minimal. It might just be a few $1,000s. If you have a loan, there's all the closing costs that are involved with that as well. So I tell people to expect somewhere around 2.5% for their closing costs. So if you consider the closing costs on the buying end, and then if you're only keeping the home for a couple years, then there could be somewhere between 5 and 6% on the selling side as well. All right, but here's the interesting thing. On average, homes in Oregon, especially in this area in Newberg, appreciate at about 5 to 6% per year. So if you buy a home at $500,000 in 2 years, there's a good chance that it will be worth about $550,000. So even though you're about even on a monthly basis and you have your closing costs, you should end up overall net positive because you've had that gain in appreciation. Now, this makes the most sense if you're already living in the Newberg area, you're wanting to buy investment property and hold it for the long term. That makes a lot more sense than if you're just going to turn around and sell it in a couple of years. One other great thing about having a rental property for your student is if you are from out of the area and you want to come visit on a regular basis, having a place where you can come and stay and not have to always get a hotel room can be really nice. In fact, this is what one family did who I helped buy a home. They had a daughter who played basketball here. They'd come up and visit, and they ultimately did a 1031 exchange, sold that property, and got a different property that had even more rooms to have more students in. So all that to say, at the end of the day, if you do decide to buy a property and then sell a property, you might be somewhere in the range of like $10,000 what you would profit if you're just holding it for the 2 years. But if you're holding it for longer, then it can make more sense. Now, if you are wanting to buy a rental property after kind of thinking through all of this, the location really matters. There's some great neighborhoods around George Fox, and I'll just kind of show where I am. So I'm actually right to the south of George Fox University. Downtown is that way. And just to the west of George Fox, there's some great neighborhoods that have really nice houses. It's really high in demand. There's great walkability because it's right next to downtown. It's right next to George Fox. And so that is a really good option for people looking for student housing. However, there are many other great neighborhoods that are worth considering. If you are looking for a rental property and you find one that you're interested in, reach out to me and I'd be happy to answer your questions. I am a licensed principal broker. My team, if you don't already know who we are, we're the Joyful Roberts Group connected to Premier Property Group here in town. We specialize in helping people relocate to Newberg and helping people buy investment properties in this area. So I'm happy to answer any of the questions that you've got. There are a lot of things to consider when buying investment properties, so definitely reach out. My information is right there at the bottom of the screen. Well, I hope this video has been helpful for you. If you're interested in learning more about Newberg and want to know what it's like living here, you want to know what the real estate market's like here, or just what it means to live in Newberg, feel free to check out the other videos on this channel. You can also subscribe so that you get each video when it comes out. There's also a couple other videos popping up on the screen and you can check those out as well. And I'll catch you in the next video.